and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities a number of different ways through this podcast, my debut book, SOAR, SOAR, and also through coaching. So we have some super exciting changes to announce pretty soon here at Live Authentically. But I'm super excited about today's show. We have Christina Lopes with us today. Hey, Christina.
How's it going?
Going great. Thank you. Happy Friday.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me.
Of course. I'm excited to have you. We have a great show planned today. And Christina does a lot of work in the area of bridging science and spirituality to help others heal from significant trauma, open their hearts, and lead fulfilling lives. So I'm super excited to hear about the many ways in which you do that. But first, we're going to kick the show off the same way we kick off all of our shows. And I'm going to ask you to respond to, how do you live authentically every day?
I think probably the easiest way to answer that question is just a quick check in with myself. That's usually the easiest way to come into authentic connection with myself. So that's pretty non-negotiable for me when it comes to daily practice. It's usually in the morning that I do my little checkup. I'll usually do it in the morning at night, but in the morning is sometimes at night if I'm really tired and I go to bed and the routine changes a little bit. But that morning check-in, so just something as simple as sitting down and just closing my eyes and just asking, how do I feel today? What's going on? And just being able to connect with my body. And I think for people who have any kind of history of trauma or any kind of painful experiences, especially in childhood, sometimes it's difficult for us to connect with our bodies. And so a lot of times what ends up happening is people will really polarize their energy up in the mind, and they'll end up living their lives according to their minds, being totally disconnected from their body. And then, when the moment comes where you finally start to heal and you start to come into your body, you start to come in to more of your authentic self, because a lot of your essence is located physically in your body. So just being able to sit down and close my eyes and sometimes I'll even apply pressure to my body. I that's a good way of grounding into your body. So I'll do that. Other times I'll just sit and just ask my body how it's feeling, and just I feel like the energy, there's an ability of the energy to just ground, like a click or a thump. Sometimes people describe it that way. And as soon as I come into my body, I know I'm living authentically from there, because my body will always tell me when something's off, like, no, don't go that way, or don't go this way. So if I'm listening to my body, I'm going to be living authentically, because I'm going to be on path with my soul for sure. So it's probably the easiest way to answer your question.
I love that. Beautiful. And I would love to highlight that question, how do I feel? That is so incredibly powerful. And I know that for me, that was such a game changer on my journey, really being intentional about that and making that, top of mind. So checking in with yourself, like you said, and really just paying attention to what your body is telling you, your mind, your soul,
Yeah.
et cetera, because our bodies
Yeah.
are so incredibly intuitive, communicative, et cetera, but we just have to carve out the time and the space to ask and be intentional about it. And then as a follow-up to that, respond, do something about that, right? How do I feel? If I'm tired, maybe I need to rest for a while. If I'm stressed, maybe I need to take a break. If I'm hungry, maybe I need to make a nutritious salad. So I
Yeah.
think it's important to constantly keep doing those check-ins.
Yeah. And, it depends also on the person's past. I tend to work with, I don't do one-on-one sessions anymore, but I've worked with thousands of people, and the majority of people, when they reached me, they had some kind of significant something to heal. It's usually trauma, or usually something related to their childhood, or even past lives, if people are in that belief system. And, just the simple idea of coming into their body and feeling their feelings, and not just feeling their feelings, but being able to identify their feelings, is actually something that seems like it's basic, but for so many people around the world, this is not. And it wasn't for me. I remember I had my spiritual awakening in 2013, and it was because, my life fell apart, my marriage fell apart. And I remember at the moment, just in that chaos, I was going to a really wonderful psychotherapist. I had been to psychotherapists before, but for some reason, my angels sent me this particular person at that moment who was trained in psychosomatic healing. And I remember that first session, he just sat there and he looked at my body and he said, "You're angry." And I sat back and I'm like, "No, I'm not." And he said, "Yes, you're angry." And I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm just in pain. My marriage fell apart." And I started to say all these things. And at the moment, it was really interesting because at the moment that I said that, I wasn't intentionally lying to him. I could not feel anger in my body because I had been so fragmented and disconnected for so many years that I couldn't even name my emotions. I didn't even know what I was feeling. And so that session and moving forward in my development, in my spiritual development and in my healing, one of the basics for me in terms of trauma healing was being able to not just feel, but identify what I was feeling and call it a name, like, wow, this is anger. I remember I got home after that session that day, and with him saying I was feeling anger, and I was like, "No, I'm feeling pain." And then I sat at home and I was thinking, I wasn't lying to him. Why can't I feel this? And it was like the anger, once it was given permission, that's always something that I talk to my clients about a lot. Once the anger was given permission, it started to come up, and then I had to make friends with it, right? Because it's, emotions that are repressed, when they start to come up, when you give permission, sometimes it feels like an active volcano is just exploding and you don't know what to do. But once I gave permission for that to come up, then you make friends with it and you sit there with that anger and you're like, "Hi, anger. Like, it's nice to meet you. I had never actually sat with you. I didn't know what it felt like to have a conversation with you." And I did this for all of the basic emotions, because I was so fragmented and I was so repressed that I had no idea what I was even feeling at any given moment. And I think that's a really important part of trauma healing, is being able to clearly identify and saying, "No, this is anger. Oh, this is pain. Okay, this is sorrow. This is sadness." Was really, really important for healing. And I think it's crucial when it comes to being able to not just move into different levels of development, but especially heal from anything from the past that you're still stuck in.
So what happens beyond that then after you identify the emotion and integrate it and recognize it and accept it, et cetera? And what does the healing process look like after that point?
For me, what I focus a lot on with people is, first getting to that identification, giving permission for the emotion to come up, because we don't usually dissociate from or disconnect from more elevated emotions. So nobody disconnects from happiness, right? Because it's an emotion that feels good. We disconnect from the emotions that feel terrible in the body when we're having them. It's a protection mechanism. And so if we disconnect from those emotions, then those are usually the emotions that we need to reconnect to. Now, the process of reconnection sometimes in itself takes a little bit of time, because we have to start thinking to ourselves, okay, I've been repressing something for so long. I've been doing it for a reason. And it's usually a protection reason. So then we have to open up the space and allow the body to feel safe, the totality of the body to feel safe and express itself in whatever ways it wants to express itself. And for that to happen, I have to have the understanding that whatever surfaces, I'm ready to heal, or I'm ready to deal with, or I'm ready to work with. And that sometimes takes a little bit of time, because for a lot of people unconsciously repress emotions because they don't think they have the tools or the ability to heal or transmute them, or work with them. There's that belief is there. Otherwise, you wouldn't push anything down, right? If you thought you had the tools to be able to work through that. So then we work through it. Okay, I have the tools. I'm a mature adult. I'm not a child anymore. Whatever happened to me when I was a child, now I can process. And so we get into that energy, and then the emotion starts to come up and it starts to surface. And it's at this moment that I love to teach people how to become alchemists. That's why I call myself the Heart Alchemist. If anyone watches my YouTube videos, I'll usually introduce myself as the Heart Alchemist. And it's a term that came to me when I was processing really heavy grief. And I noticed that, alchemists, they shift, they transform things from one thing to another. And when I noticed about emotions, dense emotions, like we're all so afraid of dense emotions, but dense emotions have a lot of energy. For example, anger is one of my favorite emotions to work with. So, when I was doing one-on-one sessions, I would always prefer a client that was angry than a client that was depressed, because depressive energy, you need a little bit of momentum to come out of that. Whereas anger is fiery, anger has movement. And so what we would do is you grab those emotions and you say, I'm an alchemist. An alchemist never wastes energy. An alchemist transforms. And so a lot of times in the healing processes, people tend to think that, okay, I'm going to sit with anger or sadness or whatever other problematic emotion that I don't like to feel. I'm going to sit with it for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'm going to release it. I'm going to release it. There's a lot of healing around. There's a lot of healing terms that use the word release, let go, let it go. And to me, it feels like a waste of energy. So what I tend to coach people to do is do not waste energy. Anger or sadness or any other emotion, that is energy. There's raw energy there. So what you do as an alchemist is you grab that energy and you're going to transform it. Now, how do you do that? How do you transform lower vibrational energy into higher vibrational energy? And that's where the heart comes in. So it's, in my opinion, your most powerful chakra is the heart chakra. And it's an incinerator in its energy. So the heart chakra, if you think about this heart center as an incinerator, then that means that you can pull energy into the heart and then transform it into whatever you want, whether it's love, joy, awe, wonder, those elevated states of consciousness. It's possible to do that work through the heart. And it's really, it may seem like it's complicated, but it's not. It's just a question of you having the intention to do that and understanding that that's what I'm doing. I'm going to grab fear wherever it is. So sometimes I'll tell people, where are you feeling? This is important in any kind of trauma work. Where are you feeling your feelings? So the person will say, I'm feeling anger. And I'll say, where is the anger? It usually somaticizes somewhere. So then the person will say, my stomach, I'm feeling it in the stomach. And then you're going to bring that energy. You feel it in the stomach. That's great. Introduce yourself to that area of the body. Sit with it. Let that energy open up, because the more we focus on something, the more it expands. So if you ask someone to close their eyes and focus on their right pinky, in about 20 seconds, they're going to actually start to feel physical symptoms like tingling and things like that. Consciousness draws energy. Awareness draws energy. And so you're consciously aware of where that anger is. Okay, it's at the stomach. I'm aware. I'm sitting with it. I'm introducing myself. I'm not in a state of resistance. I'm not pulling away from the anger. I'm not running away. I'm not repressing it. No more. I'm sitting with it. And then this is where the intuitive part comes in. There'll come a moment where you'll say to yourself, okay, I've sat with it enough. I could feel that I've sat with it enough. And now I'm going to consciously pull it up to my heart. And a lot of people actually like to visualize, when they're doing that part of the process, they like to visualize their heart like a fire, like a living fire. And as soon as the anger just falls into the heart and it starts to be incinerated, that the emotion itself will be transmuted. And people report this all the time. They'll start to feel, they'll sit there for about 5 minutes. Sometimes they'll cry and they'll cry and they'll cry. Sometimes it's painful initially when it reaches the heart, because the heart starts to burn. People actually have physical symptoms when they do this process. It's really cool. Like some people will say, my heart starts to open, or some people will say, my body starts to get really hot. But after a few minutes of doing this, the emotion will transmute into something more elevated. And then people will say, oh my God, like that was so amazing. Like I felt energized after doing that practice. I felt this, I felt more emotional. I felt more love. I felt more connection. There's different ways of describing the movement from lower vibration to more elevated states of consciousness. But people will usually report it in that way, that they feel it like that.
Wow, that's really a fascinating process. I'm curious, when you talk about trauma, when you talk about healing trauma, are you talking about acute, like significant event type traumas from childhood or from really at any point in life? Or are you referring to kind of the more chronic trauma, like the traumas that are more daily, that are just kind of gradually erode at one's, sense of being, self-worth, etc., or
Yeah.
both?
I think they're both related. Definitely work with all types of trauma, whether it's lower graded over longer periods or whether it's more acute one event kind of thing. Trauma generally isn't just one event. So even when trauma occurs over a longer period of time with smaller incidences, there's always a seed. There's always the initial trauma. And for some people, if you believe in past lives, for the people that believe in past lives, the trauma is already coming from a past life and is simply triggered in this lifetime because our souls evolve in a continuum. For those that don't ascribe to the belief in past lives, we can just talk about this lifetime. In this lifetime, there's a seed incident. When you're talking about long, low grade trauma, there's usually a seed incident that will cause wounding in the person. And then the person grows up and they end up perpetuating the energy unconsciously. So, a practical example of this, a person who grows up with highly critical parents that are constantly demeaning the child and constantly putting her down. And then she grows up and she ends up dating men that do exactly the same, or women. So she ends up attracting partners that do exactly the same. Well, at the moment that that's happening, the trauma is continuing, right? But we can't say that it's the partner at that moment that's causing the trauma. The way that I prefer to look at it is that it's just simply another poke at a wound that's already there. And so as soon as you go back and you heal the original wound, then all of the relationships that are demeaning are going to fall off because the person won't permit it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's that moment of coming into personal power and sovereignty where you can see clearly that the things that are manifesting in your life are a continuation of something from the past, and you get to that seed wound and you clear it, then the entire timeline is healed. So to answer your question, whether it's low grade continuous trauma or whether it's something, something really big like sexual trauma or whatever it is in childhood, I would kind of address it in much the same steps, really, because there's always that original seed wound that we have to get to eventually.
And so what happens if someone can't recall or doesn't have awareness of what that seed wound is?
Mm-hmm. So for the majority of people, there's that feeling. There's an intuition, there's a knowing. There may not be a knowing about the exact details. So in my life, for example, I was molested when I was a child, and I only remembered that as an adult. And this was way into my spiritual awakening already. But there was always a part of me, there's always a part of you, that inner knowing, because your body doesn't forget. Your mind doesn't forget. It's just inaccessible. It's there somewhere. And so for me, the healing of the trauma was, I remembered the trauma was, I work with plant medicine. So it was during an ayahuasca ceremony that I was finally able to connect the puzzle pieces and remember. But even before that event, I knew that something significant had happened to me because I could feel it. I could just feel it. The puzzle pieces started to kind of be put together. And so does the person have to remember the exact details of what happened to them to heal it? No, I was never given the full memory of exactly what happened to me. I have some key moments that I remember, but the rest is kind of, a wash. But what was important to me during that ayahuasca ceremony that really helped me heal was that I was shown only what I needed to see. So there was almost like, I don't know if you've ever heard of ayahuasca or you work with plant medicine before, but there's an interesting way plant medicine kind of shows you, opens doors for you to see further into what needs to be healed. And at that moment, it was really interesting because in that plant ceremony, I was shown what I needed, enough of what I needed to heal. Didn't need to know all the details. Perfectly fine. I know what happened to me. Okay, let's get to healing. And then I went into healing. So does a person have to have some consciousness of the broad aspects of what happened to them, I think that's important. Conscious awareness of what happened to me, whether it's in this lifetime or lifetimes before, is important for healing. So a lot of times people get their healing through doing a past life regression, for instance, if we're talking about past life trauma. If we're talking about trauma in this life, a lot of times people do well with regressions, with just hypnosis and going back to their childhood.
Mhm.
For other people, it's really spontaneous over the years. Sometimes people, as they're getting deeper in their spiritual practice, so it usually happens more with people who are already doing daily meditation, who are doing mindfulness practices so that their mind is quieting. When you get into that kind of state of consciousness, it's easier for you to access these states because your body is already calm, you're already practiced, your mind is calm, and it allows you to open doors to altered states of consciousness where you can just remember things spontaneously. I've had many clients who have had this, who have actually just through practice, through patience, through not pushing, just through the saying to the universe, to their guides, to their angels, saying, I know something significant happened to me. I don't know what it is, but I feel prepared to heal. I feel prepared to see. Show me what I need to see. And that's a good surrender, because your guides, your soul, your oversoul, whatever you want to call it, it will only show you what you need. It never overwhelms you. It never shows you anything beyond your capabilities to heal. And so if you trust that, you know that you're always going to get to what's necessary, to the type of consciousness that's necessary for you to heal.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Um, how did you, as I'm sitting here listening to you talk, I can tell how passionate you are about this, and and just how with such deep wisdom, and you're obviously squarely, sitting squarely in the middle of, your spiritual calling, exactly, your purpose, why you're here on earth. So I'm curious, how did you arrive at this place? At what point did you say, okay, I am here to heal, I'm here to be an alchemist, I'm here to awaken and help move humanity forward in a powerful way?
Well, for me, I hope moving forward, this doesn't happen this way for as many people. But I think for a lot of healers up until now, we've awakened through significant challenge and significant pain. And that's what happened to me. And I was so fragmented and so dissociated that I knew I was a healer. I was a physical therapist. So I have a doctorate degree in physical therapist. My specialty was neuropediatrics. So I was already in what you would call a helping profession before, but I was strictly a clinician. I've always been a spiritual person, but I never really wanted to explore that side of my abilities and gifts. I come from a long line of women who have the same gifts. And when I was a child, my maternal grandmother would help me a lot with my sensitivities. So I knew that was with me. I was just really terrified of exploring it. So for years, I just stuck to the science, clinician type of thing. But, then life and my soul had a way of showing me that my path was different. And it was through, unfortunately, or fortunately, actually, I shouldn't say unfortunately, because I look back and I wouldn't change anything at all. But the only way for me to have awakened to my path the way that I was so dissociated was my whole life had to basically come crumbling down. And this is what happens to a lot of us when we're completely dissociated. The image that I like to use is of a wall. When we're not awakened to our path, sometimes the walls could be a thick rock wall, or it could be a paper wall. And so if you have a paper wall, your soul doesn't need to completely destroy your life, because you can wake up with just blow on a paper and it falls over and look, I'm awake. But for those of us that have really thick rock walls surrounding ourselves, the only way to break it is through a significant explosion. And that can be painful. And that's what happened to me. But it was a beautiful moment for me to recognize, hey, I've been living my life a certain way up until now, and my path is now different. And I'm open to receiving that path now in any way that my spirit guides want that path to come forth. And it was really through that surrender that everything happened.
Yeah, I love that. And that was, as I'm listening to you talk, that was how my whole awakening happened as well. That thick rock wall, and my life was completely rearranged, completely shaken up. 4 years ago, actually 4 years ago this coming week. And,
Mm.
I wouldn't, as I look back, I wouldn't use the word unfortunate either. It's
Yeah.
I believe that everything was divinely orchestrated. I mean, the universe just totally took care of me all along, prepared me for it, gave me signs, really ushered me into this new reality. But everything started to flow more organically when I chose surrender, when I chose
Mm.
to just hand it over to the universe and just show up and just trust and show up with an open mind and an open heart every single day. And I believe that everyone can do this. I believe
Totally.
that, as long as we're open and it's really amazing what possibilities the universe creates for us when we do show up with an open mind and an open heart and, step out of that fear-based place and just accept and flow and realize that everything is on our path is meant for the purposes of our own evolution, and adversity really
Yeah.
is a gift if we choose to frame it as such,
That's
etc.
amazing.
It's
Yeah,
really
that's right.
amazing process. I'm curious, in what ways, I know you said you don't work with people one-on-one anymore, but I know you have your YouTube channel. So in what ways do you currently help awaken others?
So right now, have my YouTube channel. So that's a really, it always has been the major part of my, sorry, we got a little bit of, I don't know if you can hear that. We got a construction upstairs. So I apologize if there's any buzzing in the microphone. But basically the way that I'm doing it now is through YouTube. So through my YouTube videos, that's the primary point of my mission, always will be. And then I do private retreats every year. We're doing them in Portugal. Yeah, we're doing a retreat here in April. And then I have a couple of courses. So I have a course that's going to start running year round. We're opening it up in June, and it's an introductory course of people that are just kind of starting on their spiritual path. What are the tools that they can use? So that course, it's called Awaken. And then I have my premium coaching program. It's a group coaching program called Heart Alchemy that we launch once a year. And I'm currently actually in the middle of that program with a group of beautiful people. So we do that every February. So
Amazing.
yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your retreats.
What's that?
Tell me a little bit about your retreats. What are the retreats
So
like?
the retreats are pretty cool. I love to work physically with people. I mean, I love online stuff, obviously, but I love to work physically with people. So our retreats are amazing. We do a lot of coaching in the mornings, and then we do what's called hot seats. So I call people up to the stage and we work through their issues, and then we open up questions to the group. That's kind of in the morning. Then we have a little bit of rest, and then I would say the pinnacle of our retreats is our nightly ceremonies. So we have every night. We have these elaborate nightly ceremonies with our beautiful musicians and drumming and sacred smoke. Very shamanic in nature. People get a ton of healing through that. So we'll do past life regressions. We'll do each night. There's a different ceremony. So yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That sounds super cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So if someone who's listening is sitting here thinking, you know, that they'd really like to start to put some momentum behind their spiritual journey, what is one of the most powerful questions that you believe someone can ask themselves as they embark on spirituality with intentionality?
Mhm. So usually at the start of a spiritual awakening is, it will, for the majority of people, not for everybody, but for those of us who aren't already born awakened, there are a lot more children that are being born now that are already awakened. They are not going to have to go through the same things as us. They're just here, they're awake, here we go. But for a lot of us who have trauma or have been blocked in some way to where we cannot see the multidimensionality of who we are, usually the awakening starts with if it's not with drama like it was with me and like it was with you, or anything really big painful, sometimes a spiritual awakening can be induced by just starting to ask really important questions. One of them that I invite people to ask is, if there is more to my life, what is it? I love that question. If there's more to my life, what is it? It's an inviting question. There's no, I'm not setting my mind on what it is. I'm not saying I got to go this way, I got to go that way, I got to go that way.
Mhm.
It's just, okay, if something more or something different is meant for me, if I'm meant to go in a specific direction, please show me. I love you can kind of vary the question in different ways, but the gist of the question is literally, please show me where I'm meant to go. And you're talking to your soul, you're talking to your inner being, you're talking to God if you believe in God or source or universe or your guides. You're talking to your co-creative partner, which is the universe, and you're opening yourself up to receive that guidance that takes you along your path. That just the opening up of the energy, regardless of how you formulate the question, just you saying to the universe, if I am meant to do something different right now, please show me and I will follow. Just that.
Mhm.
It will, people would be very, very surprised what happens when you specifically invite the universe to intervene in your life and you invite the universe in an open way. You're going to get flooded with, you are going to get flooded with signs, with synchronicities, with conversations, with just incredible things that for so many people, like when people start to have their spiritual awakening, they'll tell me things have happened to me that I never actually thought would be possible. And sometimes when I'm telling stories about synchronicities and conversations and all these things happening to me, people think I'm crazy, but this stuff actually happened to me. I've had many, many people say this to me, and it's happened to me in my own life also. It's just opening up to the energy, and your path will be shown to you without question, without question.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And show me is a phrase that I've been using for years to invite the universe in and partner with the universe. And it's really amazing. It's really amazing the signs and synchronicities that it sends our way. And this is something again that's available to everyone, available to all of us. And I always say just because we have these roles as spiritual teachers, awakeners, I believe that everyone can play, a role in awakening others, healing others, inviting the universe. I mean, this is something we all have access to. We just have to be intentional about it and ask. So we are just about wrapped up here. We've got another minute or two, but I wanted to just give you a couple of minutes just to close with any final words of wisdom, if there's anything more specific about what you do that you wanted to share, and also your contact information if people would like to touch base with you directly.
Sure. So other than that, those questions that we were just talking about, people wanting to get started with that, just starting to open up the energy, that I think that's a great way to end our conversation. And if people want to find me, they can easily find me on my website. It's ChristinaLopes.com. You can easily find me there, or you can just put my name, Christina Lopes, on YouTube, and you'll find my YouTube channel immediately. And from my YouTube channel, you can find my Instagram, my website, courses that you want to take, anything like that. But it's probably your best introduction to me would be through my YouTube channel. There's a ton of videos and a ton of valuable content there for people if they want to start there.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to check it out. So thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it. It's been so amazing talking with you and hearing about your journey and all the amazing healing work that you're doing in the world. So thank you again for being here.
Thanks a lot, Pamela. It was great to be here.
Thank you. And thank you to our viewers and listeners. I so appreciate you. I believe that time is a choice, and I'm grateful that you've been here today to listen to everything that Christina has had to share. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.